Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video on my channel. So today we're going to be doing an acrylic set, kind of a pink and gold, bit of baby boomer action going on, and I'm also going to be trying out 3D roses for the first time, so stay tuned to see how that goes out. So I already have my hand prepped and ready to go. I have the Glitterbels square matte tips on them. I didn't cut any length off them, I just sharpened up the edges with my file. So I'm going in with pastel pink for this set, so I'm just kind of fading it into the clear tip. So now I'm just going in with some broken gold, so it's not a solid colour, so it's just a clear acrylic with little shards of gold in it. I don't want to achieve full coverage with this, so I'm just going to fade those two into each other so you still get that glass effect at the tip of the nail. And that's just what that nail looks like when it's done. So moving on to the second nail, so the ringed finger and the index finger I'm going to do the same. So I'm just going in with pastel pink again, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a ledge. So I'm going to have a nice straight sharp line going across, and then on the clear tip I'm going to do my 3D roses there. So I'm just going to go in with my brush, try lay down that wall as flat as I can, and then just building up the colour coverage down on the rest of the nail. But it doesn't have to be too perfect, because I'm going to go in with my file afterwards and sharpen that all up. If I was to do this set again, I would probably use different tips, not the matte tips, because I think it gives that a little bit of a frosted look after I encapsulated at the end. I wasn't happy with how clear it was, you couldn't see the roses too well. So if I was to do it again, that would be the one thing I would change. So pastel pink is not a core colour, so it does need to be encapsulated. So I'm not focusing on building up any structure or anything for the nail, so I'm just building up coverage. So on the middle finger here, I'm just going in with some Snowdrops white, which is just a pure white acrylic, and I'm going to do a French fade nail on this one. So I just pop my white on, flick my brush around and blend it up the nail. So I'm just going to pop another little bead on because I didn't get the coverage that I was happy with. So pop another bit on, flick my brush around and blend it up the nail. And I'm just going to let that set then before I go in with the pastel pink, because I don't want to muddy everything up. So doing the same thing then on the index as I did the ring finger. So bring it down roughly the same length and build up that ledge. So you want to have a bit of thickness there just to build up so you can file into it and make it a nice crisp sharp line. But again, you don't need to focus on building up the apex or any structure, because we're going to be encapsulating at the end for all of that. Just going in with my cuticle bead, getting it nice and flush around the skin. and not overlapping any of the cuticle or anything like that, and just blending that bead down into the rest and building up that colour coverage. So I'm just going back in then to the middle finger, going back in with the pastel pink, popping it on the line where I faded up, and then just tapping the very edge of the bead and blending that down the nail. So I'm just flattening out the rest of the product and then going in with another bead up at the cuticle, and then just to build up a bit of colour coverage. So I like to do my baby boomer sets in steps. So I always pop the first bead on the blend of the nail, so you get that good coverage and good transition in between the two colours. So I always do a smaller, slightly wetter bead when I'm blending for my first bead, when I'm blending them together. Then I go in with a bit of a drier bead that's a bit more controlled in at the cuticle area, and just to build up the colour then at the base of the nail. So again, just building up a bit more coverage and perfecting that blend. And you can always go in with small beads after you've built up the cuticle area and you're happy with the coverage. If you're not happy with your blend, you can just go back in. So with the thumb, I'm going to do that the same as the pinky. So I'm just going to blend the pastel pink into the clear tip and go in with the broken gold at the tip. So you'll notice with the French fade, I always go in with the tip colour first when you're doing pink and white nails. So you want to have the white laid down at the tip, blend it up, and then go in with the pastel pink second. But for the thumbs with the broken gold, you can do it either way, but I prefer to do the broken gold on top because I don't want to have the pastel pink covering up any of the glitter. So that's why I chose to do it this way. So the blend doesn't have to be perfect because it's mostly hidden with the broken gold anyways. So just going in with that at the tip, laying that down, and then I'm just going to flip my brush around and blend the flakes up the nail. This is a metal file board, so you have replaceable sticker pads on it, and I'm using 150 grit just to go in and really sharpen down that line on the ring finger and the index. So I'm just going to repeat the process then on the index finger, sharpen that all up before we do our 3D roses, and then going in and encapsulating. So I'm starting off with the 3D roses now, so I'm using my 3D brush from Glitterbels, and I'm going in with Snowdrops white. So you want to go in with a little bead and you kind of want to put it in a C shape. Now again, this is my first attempt at doing this. I am no expert. I literally watched one YouTube video before I started this and I was like, okay, cool, we'll give it a go. So you put the bead down in like a C shape, and then when you're patting them out, you want to use like the side and the belly of the brush. So you don't want to use the fat side, you want to use the skinnier side, but still staying in the back 2/3 of the brush. So you'll notice with the tip of the brush that actually doesn't really touch the acrylic too much when you're patting and pressing and pulling it out. So you want to have that in towards where the center of your rose is going to end up being. So I'm just starting with a few outer petals first. Going in with another bead, kind of up above that, as you can see, patting that out, dragging out the shape a little bit. If I was to do this again, I'd probably use slightly drier beads, as I found when I was patting them out, I was either working them too much or the bead was a little bit too wet, because it was hard to see the texture of the brush to define the petals. If it was a bit on the drier side, you'd see the bristle marks a bit more and it would look a bit more lifelike. So you'll see me, that's when I go in with the tip, just to kind of create a little bit more texture. Going in with my third petal now, so this one's going to slightly overlap the first two that I laid down, and working in closer and closer to the center. Again, put the point in the center of the point of the brush goes into the center of the flower as you're molding and patting and pressing that petal out. So when you're encapsulating 3D flowers, you want to make sure that they're nice and flat as well, because you don't want them too high or else you'll just end up filing them off in the finished file process. So I'm going in with my fourth bead now, again putting that in the little C shape, pointing the brush towards the inside and using the side of the brush to pat that out into place. So when I'm going in with the tip again, I'm just creating a little bit of texture. So this is my second last bead, so I'm doing a little dot just into center of the nail. So I'm just going to let that sit for a little second before I start to mold it. And what I'm going to do, pop the tip of the brush right in the very center and create a little hole. And then I'm going to pat it all around the outside and go in all different directions so it flattens out, like nearly, it's the second last one I'm going to do. So I'm just going to pull that out and create some texture. Going in with one more small bead, and I'm just going to leave that as a dot in the center of the nail. I'm not going to do too much with it at all. So moving on to the ring finger then, I'm just going to repeat the whole process. Again, bear in mind, this is my first attempt at doing this, so I am no expert yet, but I'll get there. Just need a little bit more practice, but I'm pretty happy how it turned out for my first attempt. In the future, if I was to do it on 2 nails again, I would work from nail to nail, so I would do one petal on the index and then I'll do the next petal on the ring finger, just so they get a chance to set, because we're layering petals on top of each other. They're not too wet still, so you want to have them a little bit set, so you're not mushing the product into each other and causing muddiness, and you're losing definition then in your petals. And I think that's what happened to me just a little bit on the outer petals. So when you're patting out that C shape, you don't want to have it in a perfect C shape, because if you look at a petal in a real flower, it's not perfectly symmetrical, so it's a little slightly irregular edge on it. So to kind of create that irregular edge when you're spreading out the C initially, you can spread it out a little bit uneven, or when you're pulling, patting and pressing it out, if you push harder into the product on one end than you do the other, it will create that irregular shape. So I will link all of the products and what colours I used in the description box below, so be sure to check that out. So I'm just going to show you a side view then of the two roses, just to show you how flat they are. So you don't want to have them up too high, or else you'll end up filing them out of your design. So I'm just going to encapsulate the whole set now. So I'm going in my glass slippers, so I'll just have this bit sped up because it's pretty self-explanatory. So when I'm encapsulating any 3D work like that, I like to get a wetter, smaller bead and just push it into all the nooks and crannies, so then you're not left with any air bubbles, because if you're to go in with your big bead straight away, you might miss in between some of the petals or something like that, and you'll be left with an air bubble. Especially when you're doing a design like this, you don't want to lose any of the definition through air bubbles or anything like that. So I just go in with a wet layer first, and then I go in and encapsulate the whole thing. So I'm just building up my strength and my structure for this, making sure that there's enough product on the nails. And again, I'll show you that technique, slowed it down into real time, pushing that acrylic in, making sure it's getting in all the little nooks and crannies and that there's no air bubbles. And then you just encapsulate as normal. I'm just going to finish file really quickly with my 150 grit file, and I use a 180 then around the cuticle sometimes, and I'm just going to buff them and then wipe them all, and then it's time for a top coat. So here's some satisfying top coat reveal shots. These are my favorite shots, so satisfying. And when you do any type of glass nail, you can always top coat the underneath side as well. So that's what I did on the ring finger and the index finger, just top coated. After I fully cured the top coat on top, that's when I top coated underneath. So then you flip your hand in, you pop your hand in the lamp upside down to cure it when you do the underside. So here is the finished set. Let me know down below what you guys think of this. And be sure to follow me on my social medias. I'll have it all linked down below, and I'll pop it up on the screen too. So if you have any ideas for the future, you can leave a comment down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video.